Hello, Sabrina. We're going to take a look at your 5 characteristics blog posting, give you a few observations and let you know what I think I'm looking at here. So let's just jump right in. I'll share screen and we'll start looking at your work. Now, the first thing that I do is basically just an overview. I look at how you posted the work, whether it's in some sort of order, in the logical order of the acronym DITCH. That order is not arbitrary. It is the order in which you would typically address the 5 characteristics, direction being first, where you would place the key light. You would place the key light in a position. Then you would deal with intensity, being whether you need another light. Then you would address the color temperature. Then you would start dealing with contrast, the amount of values that you have in between the lights and the darks. Then you would deal with the nature of the shadows. The other thing that I start to look at here, and I'll start scrolling, is the overall exposures. Are they a little light, a little too dark, or are they kind of right in the middle? So far, you're looking pretty good. Some of them are a little bright, but not too bad. Some students have trouble with that, even when we have them on program. You can sometimes have images that get away from you. They look too dark, which is underexposed, or too light, which is overexposed. Yours seem to be in pretty good shape, so no problem there. Then I'm looking at effectively composition, and that's where we really have to kind of open up and we start talking about them. So this being your direction, you've got position 1 going on here, then position 2, position 3, and you can see the light sort of turning. So it looks like you've got a pretty good handle on that. Position 1, where the light is in the front, you're slowly moving around the table and the light is moving with you. So light's coming from the side on position 3, coming slightly from the back. And the way I can tell is the direction of the shadows. The direction of the light can be obscured sometimes, but the shadows won't deceive themselves. They're going to tell you exactly where they're coming from. So the light is over here, the shadows are produced on the opposite side of it. So it looks like you have all of that working pretty well. What I like to see is what you're doing. Here we have the entire picture plane engaged. In other words, you're using all of the space. You're using all of the space that is available within your viewfinder. You're not just sort of plunking things in the middle or putting things off to the side. You're allowing objects to run off the edge. You're filling the frame with shape. You're activating these spaces. This little shape right here in the dark area, combined with this space, creates this space here, this triangle. That's an energy that you create. What we're talking about here is basically principles of design. These are the things that you would learn in 2-dimensional design and observational drawing. Just because this isn't a composition class, it's about lighting, doesn't mean we throw those things away. We want to apply them to our photography as we go. So it looks like you're really, you're using composition. You're exploring through the scene. Your first couple of compositions, they look relatively natural. What I mean is they don't look like you're really attempting to set things up. You don't get there until maybe this one, where it looks like maybe you're sort of starting to organize things a little bit. That gets a little bit tricky sometimes to make them feel natural, to make them not feel self-conscious or constructed. This one is in pretty good shape, I would say. It doesn't quite feel like you're trying to set things up, but it's, in some cases, it can kind of start to look like that. I don't think you're there yet, but we'll see if that happens. Whoops. Again, this is a nice, oh, whoa, what's going on here? There we go. This is a good one in terms of being able to sort of find a composition rather than having the composition look as if you were the one who was manipulating it. Photography kind of comes in 2 different ways. One has to do with exploration and the other has to do with construction, meaning you're sort of organizing a composition within the frame, or you're moving yourself around to try to find a composition. Now, here, what's happening is you're going to be composing in front of the camera because your camera during the direction exercise never moved. So all you really can do is move objects in front of the camera. The challenge was to make it feel natural and unassuming, not make it kind of avoid making it feel self-conscious and like you deliberately placed something there, more like you just sort of found it there, even though we both know you didn't. You just had to put it there. So once we get down into intensity, now we have two elements. You have the key light, and you also have now a fill light. So it's the same as the first. You still address the key light and where you're positioning it. You have a choice now, just anywhere, wherever you want it to start. And then what you do is you add that fill light. And your job there is to just enhance the shadow areas. And so it looks like you've got that concept going pretty well. We have filled in shadow areas like in this image. You're still activating the entire space pretty well. However, you've got that fill light now, which is happening in areas like this and over here, which is giving you a little bit more tonal value in those darker areas. They don't just sort of fall off. That's a very good job there. Very good. So as we continue moving forward, here we're starting your temperature exercise. So we're exploring. I like that you're labeling everything like this. This is great. It's showing me that you're paying attention, not just for me, but for you as well. You're able to reproduce stuff when you have essentially the recipe for your color solution or for your lighting solution. When you happen to find one that you like, when you happen to find one that maybe find one that you're not so hot on, but then later on you're like, that one would really work for XYZ. You can go back and find out what that is, even though you might not use it for months. It's a good idea to take notes. You don't have to write everything down that you ever do, but when you find something that's interesting, write a note down. The digital world's great that way because you can store endless amounts of notes, categorize them really well. You don't have to have stacks of notepads everywhere, but writing down what you're doing and posting them on your blog or having them on your blog posting, that's a really good thing to do, even though I didn't specifically ask for all the detail there. I think it's fantastic that you put it there and good job on that. You're exploring all kinds of different settings. I'm glad that you found the fluorescent and settings here. You're getting that sort of rosy hue to certain things. You're really exploring the different types of colors that you can choose, from the red to the rose to the sort of cyan and the blue and a slightly green and more of the neutral. That's what this is all about. That's what this exercise was supposed to have you do. So you got right into it and you did exactly what we were wanting you to do, still maintaining some decent compositions, and which is actually fairly good because now we have a lot more things to work with. We started with just one light in direction. Then we were working with two lights in intensity. Now you have two lights. You're controlling the brightness of those two lights. You're controlling now the color of those two lights. And now we are operating the white balance of those two lights. So what happens here is there's a lot to think about. And so in some cases, students start to sort of not think so much about their compositions. They're concerned about all the other stuff. Sometimes the compositions fall to the wayside. It's not happening for you. If it sounds like I'm giving you lots of compliments, I am. I think you're doing a really good job so far here. Contrast, all about that reflecting card. Really important tool. Really simple tool, but an important tool for you to use. All photographers use reflecting cards. You'll want to use a reflecting card from here on out. It's going to be a wonderful thing for you to just have in your tool bag. It doesn't have to be a big thing. I've got a notepad here. This is a reflecting instrument if I needed it to be. That's all it has to be. Something that you can capture a little bit of the light and bounce it back into the scene. You can use all kinds of different things. It doesn't have to be white. It could be silver. It could be red. It could be blue, all kinds of gold. It could be all kinds of different shades and tones, and you'll start to bounce those characteristics into the scene. So if you had a red card or a red reflective surface, you'd be bouncing a sort of a reddish cast into the scene. So it's almost like colored gels. You are doing a good job with the white, filling in the shadow areas. The job, really, what you're doing is you're adding more variation of tones in there. It's adding more tonal range to your image. But also, if you experiment with the size of the reflecting card, you'll be able to shape that reflection. You'll be able to really control where you're adding a little bit of that reflected light. A little bit of the reflective light to a small spot can sort of accent and direct the viewer's eye right to where you want them to see. You're doing a pretty good job here. I can see where your reflections are. For instance, right in here where you're bouncing a little bit of light. Right over here, you've got the one light. You got a little bit of the light in here. That can happen. So you might not have even seen that in your rangefinder when you were looking at the camera, especially if you're looking at just the screen. A lot of cameras, unless it's a very high-end camera, like a very expensive camera, those screens, they portray maybe 90% of what you're actually taking a picture of, because it can't show you the full frame. They can't show you actually everything you're taking a picture of. And so when you take the picture, you actually will get a little bit of extra stuff on the outside, and you're thinking, well, that would be good. But when you're not cropping and you're just shooting everything full frame, you might get stuff like that because you didn't actually see it. And I take that into account, especially in the beginning. But take that into account as you're working and kind of understand that, oh, if that's really, really close like that, I might need to jump in just a slight bit more. Not a problem, but just bear that in mind as you're working. This gets a little bit tight right here. You see how this circle comes in here and then it kind of just crashes in here, and then this one crashes? If the bottle here was cut off somewhere around here, see this line right here that I'm drawing? Right about here. It's not quite half of the bottle, but it's enough to open up that circle, because if the circle is tight like that, what happens is the eye wants to close it off, but you've cut it off. And so it feels like there's a kind of a tension there. If you open it up, in other words, you cut it off so that the circle is only like half of as big, the eye doesn't want to close it off as aggressively. So it feels like you can move through it a little bit better. There's reasons that you would want tension. In this shot, it doesn't feel like you wanted that, or at least it doesn't seem appropriate to this kind of shot. So if you had moved the larger bottle just over a little bit, cropping out or blocking a little bit more of that bottle, I think you would have had a little bit more of a balance in terms of energy on that. Just a small little thing to pay attention to, because I'd like to give you some advice on how to improve what you're doing, because you're doing a very good job. Moving into now the hardness, that's about the shadows. So what about the shadows? The nature of the shadows are just as important as the nature of the highlights, the textures, and all the rest. So when you have a light and you have nothing on it, it's called hard light. When you put the diffuser over it, you put a sheet over it or whatever you're putting over it, you're scattering the light. You're sort of dispersing the light in a way that allows it to be, I guess, more feathered as it transitions from light to dark. And so what it does to the shadows is it feathers those edges of the shadows, giving them a softer appearance. And so the difference is going to be where you're going to get a very soft looking image like this, where everything is very soft. The shadows sometimes even disappear. You can see this shadow almost virtually disappears. It's so soft. That is helpful when you're attempting to sort of make something look less graphic, especially like on a face, if you're trying to sort of smooth out all of the features and not have it so angular. If you're not trying to highlight, things on their face, or you're trying to smooth out their skin, a diffused light will definitely help you in that way. That said, if you are looking at something where the light isn't diffused, you're going to get a lot of angles and harsher shadows. That edge is going to be very sharp, and that can help you because you'd be looking to create an energy, and you're looking to create a certain graphic nature to the image. So that's what you're doing with the lights there when you are diffusing or not diffusing. Again, don't forget your option there. A lot of times I start to see the students after this first exercise forget that, hey, I can diffuse the light, and it transforms and changes it. All these tools are there for you. You don't have to use them all the time, but they're definitely there for you. Take advantage of them, especially the reflecting card and the diffusers, because they are really going to transform and make your lighting solutions feel much more sophisticated and much more enriched by them. Your compositions, again, you're doing a very good job of kind of organizing and filling the space in terms of being able to do that, using a lot of horizons. Your angle and your perspective seems to be relatively the same. You're kind of at the same height of your camera. So as we move forward, I would encourage you to start to move around, go up, go down, move around, that kind of thing. There's a little prohibitive here because in some of them I had you on a tripod and stuff, but start moving around the set, start moving the camera from different perspectives so you're not just at one angle, and that type of thing as we move forward. So that's what I have. Very good job on that. We will be doing a grade form. I have these sort of index card type of things for you. I'll be handing those out. You'll be pleased with it because I think you did an excellent job, both with the technical parts and the labeling. Your compositions look good. So excellent job. Look forward to seeing more of your work, and we will see you in the studio. All right. Bye-bye now.